Hi, so welcome. Thank you for coming along to listen to us talk about apprenticeships as part of the National Apprenticeship Week. Like I've been introduced here, my name is David Parks. I'm a talent manager. I'm joined obviously by Donna, my colleague, who's another talent manager. But that's kind of a fancier way maybe of saying that we're your young person's employability coach when they need us for their next steps and taking in that journey into work, employment, or an apprenticeship. So today we are going to look through apprenticeships. If I can get my thing to move. Right, so here we go. So during this course this week, all of your young people in the Witherslack schools will be introduced to apprenticeships from lots of different industries, from automotive to the tech industry. So this is just part of the National Apprenticeship Week sort of itinerary that we have going on for you guys to have a look at and see whether you can make some informed choices for your young people in the future. So over to you, Donna.
Evening, everyone. So we'll start with what is an apprenticeship. When your young person is getting to the end of their school life, years 10, 11, 12, 13, however long they decide to stay on for, they'll be given loads of choices about what are their next steps. It could be college, it could be a training provider, it could be full-time work, but thrown into that mix is an apprenticeship as well. And an apprenticeship is kind of like a mixture of all of those. So it is a job which they will have to apply for like they would any other, except this one comes with training added into it as well. So they will have to go to college. So it is a hands-on job role and study program all at the same time. And we'll go, as we go through, we'll kind of break it all down for you. Now, the tagline has always been, since apprenticeships were born, is earn while you learn, because everybody on an apprenticeship does earn a wage. They vary depending on your age, depending on your company, and depending on what qualifications you bring to the role as well. So there's lots and lots of research to do around apprenticeships, and I'm happy to say that earning while you're learning is always actually getting more and more every year as well. So when we say that it combines the classroom learning with real world experience, when your young person applies for an apprenticeship and goes through the process and is actually offered that position, the company decide what type of education they will provide. It could be going off to college for 1 day a week. It could be actually broken down into a collective learning program. So it could be a week at a time and then a few weeks within the work setting. That is all dependent on the company themselves and how they actually want to provide that education. So it's a great conversation to have during the interview process, and something you should really kind of promote as well with your young person if they do go for the interview as one of those questions to ask. And alongside the learning, they will actually get recognised qualifications. So the company will choose the course that is attached to the job role. Now, the idea of an apprenticeship is you start without the qualifications. And then what happens is the company will actually educate you as you go along. You will get the full qualification at the end, and then you can use that to either take on a further apprenticeship or get a promotion within the work setting as well. So that is really what an apprenticeship is all about.
Okay, so what sort of training do apprenticeships offer? So first of all, it's on the job, so it's practical from a skills-based professional, and they get to learn from these professionals on how to do their their role to be able to complete that qualification. Now, some of the learning then needs to be backed up in the classroom, so it might mean that your young person has to go to college alongside the apprenticeship for 1 day per week to be able to do the more academic side of that, and they might have to do their maths and English. Again, we're going to touch on that quite a bit through the presentation. But they're also going to develop some personal skills as well. So that might be teamwork, communication, problem solving, everything that they need to do to make that next step in their career journey and employment journey for them. So like I say, Donna said, a complete combination of work experience and then education alongside it. Some of the education side of it might be assessment based on the job, but they may get their assessments either where they talk to and ask questions and they have to be able to repeat back what their answers might be. So again, depending on how the training provider has set up the apprenticeship will depend on how the assessments go along through it. But yeah, it will either be a work experience and college or assessment based learning throughout the apprenticeship. Okay.
Now then, when it comes to the apprenticeship levels, there are actually 4 different levels available. They are dependent on qualifications. So I'll just explain the first part for you. So the intermediate level, which is known as a level 2, is sometimes advertised as an entry level. And where it says the equivalent to GCSEs, this actually means that the level of education that your young person will be having added onto their apprenticeship will be the equivalent of GCSEs. So the advanced level, which is a level 3, is the equivalent to the A-level standards as well. Now, for level 2 and 3, these are available to anybody from 16 plus, and the education side of this will be done within college. Now, when it comes to the higher and the degree levels, these are your foundation degrees, your bachelor or your master's degrees. These are available to anybody over the age of 18 plus that has actually finished college first and starts with A-level level qualifications. So again, it's something that they can progress through. There is no rush, however, to go from a level 2 into a level 3 into a level 4 beyond. What can happen is you can start at a level 2, gain the qualifications, do the job role, and then in the future take on a level 3 apprenticeship. If you are already in a work setting and you feel like you would like to gain a higher degree within your job role, you can actually speak to your current employer and ask if you can have it added on and begin an apprenticeship within your current role. It's a great way in the future to go for those promotions or just gain those extra qualifications, because having a degree for some of us is something that we've always wanted and maybe didn't have the chance when we were 17, 18 years old, but now we're a little bit older, have a little bit more experience, are able to take on that qualification. David?
So qualifications for each level. So when you're looking at apprenticeships, what you might find is that for a level 2 and you looked at the government website to find apprenticeship, it might say no specific qualifications are required. Now that sounds great, but there is a bit of a however point to it. A lot of the qualifications, they might say that they need to have their English and maths alongside it. Now, if they don't attain their English and maths while they're at school, it will be something that they have to do alongside the level 2 apprenticeship. Normally, this will be at a level 2 functional skills is what they will complete. So there is no getting out of it in terms of being able to do their English and maths. It is something they are going to have to do alongside the apprenticeship if they haven't got it. Now it can be, and this is great news from the government in terms of what they've done, is they have lowered the attainment level that a young person maybe needs to do on terms of English and maths. So whereas before it always used to be a functional skills level 2 that they needed to complete alongside the apprenticeship, it can now be lowered down to an entry level 3. Which is great if your young person is maybe struggling with their English and maths. The important part here is that they need to complete or attempt to complete the endpoint assessment at the end of the apprenticeship. This is particularly important because it's how the training provider and the employer are able to pull down the last piece of funding, which equates to about 20% for actually getting that qualification, and they won't get the endpoint qualification if they haven't completed or tried to complete it. So it's quite important that they either get their English and maths or that they are studying it alongside it and they make their time to do it. When you go on to level 3 qualification, so what you have is when you look at the application process, it might say that they need to have 5 GCSEs at a grade 4 and above, particularly in their English and maths. This is because the academic side of the apprenticeship will be required to write at an A-level standard, or to be able to have that comprehension at an A-level standard. And then that goes through for the level 4s and the T-level qualifications as well. So it is something that as they move forward, they can be moving forward with their qualifications in English and maths as they run alongside their level 2, and then they go on to their level 3. So they can keep on going, keep on growing in both of those subjects. I just kind of wanted to highlight how important that either getting that qualification is if they can do before, or just the realization that your young person might have to do it alongside the apprentice. Donna?
I will just say here that when you apply for an apprenticeship as well, you can actually put down predicted grades. So you can speak to your school before, if you're applying for an apprenticeship while you're still in the school setting. Excuse me, you can put down predicted grades. And then hopefully your young person will actually attain them by the end of their school life as well. So when it comes to the industries offering apprenticeships here, there are actually over 600 apprenticeship industries and sectors offering out job offers across the country. And what then happens is that's all broken down into those different job roles. And it is so varied, it's incredible. So again, research is really, really key. So whether it's IT or healthcare, and some of those, when you break them down, you could be in digital marketing, you could be in accounting, nursing. It is quite vast. So don't pigeonhole yourself just yet, because there might be some industries and sectors that you've never really looked at before, but might actually be offering out the perfect opportunity for you. So really make sure that you are doing the research when you are connecting yourself to some of those industries, because you will be surprised at where your young person's skills and strengths fit in. And you might come across something totally unexpected that you might read about and go, do you know what, this sounds just like you, should we have a look at it? It is quite an eye-opener, and it is definitely worth doing a bit of sit-down reading before you go to bed.
Okay.
And some of the most common ones that we come across, I'm going to start this one with the business admin, just as a bit of an example. So this is everything from your, and I took a couple of notes earlier on, you've got everything from business administrator, okay, simple as that sounds. That's just general office tasks, managing records, HR, which is recruitment and employee connections. And then you've got things like finance and marketing administration, data entry. Now, all of those job roles can be offered out as an apprentice, and they're looking for skills like communication, attention to detail, basic IT and digital skills. Are you organised? And this is a great thing to, again, once you start looking at your young person's kind of like skills and hobbies and interests and what they're quite good at, this is where you need to start connecting them and their skills to these job roles. One of the ones that I will go over definitely, though, is the healthcare. That's where I started many, many, many years ago. Now, this covers so much when it comes to health and social care, everything from your nursery assistants, you could be a teaching assistant, you could move into care work, NHS work, and that covers everything from your young children, your elderly. It's working in hospitals, in care homes, in children's homes, schools, respite care homes. It is so vast, it is incredible. The NHS are one of the biggest employers for apprentices across the board. So it is definitely worth looking into the NHS as a company. And again, very similar skills that they'll be looking for. Those communication skills, are they organised? Are they quite resilient? Do they show empathy? Are they creative? You've got to kind of start looking at each of them and then breaking them down. Okay, so every time you look at a different sector, break it down really, really well. David, I know you've got a lot on construction.
Yeah, so one of the I think one of the apprenticeships that most of our young people who are in the Witherslack schools tend to want to go into is maybe one of the areas is construction. And construction is, if you look at what's happening in terms of the government at the moment, if they wanted to build 1.5 million homes, if they can do that in this time period, it would be amazing. And the opportunities are definitely going to be out there. The however point is that there is a huge gap in the market in terms of young people coming into the construction industry. As more people are retiring out of it, the people to train them is getting less and less, and this is where it kind of bottlenecks a little bit. So construction is a great industry. So if you think that it takes nearly 22 people on average to build a home and 30 to do this kind of specialized roles into it, there will be an apprenticeship alongside every single one of those trades, whether it's bricklaying, plastering, whether it be electricians and gas engineers and all of these kind of things. The thing, but I would say the most difficult thing for our young people to try and get their kind of heads around it is that a lot of these apprenticeships are offered out to where people who are over the age of 18, not necessarily when they're 16 and 17. Now, the reason for this is going to be maybe a little bit of liability insurance. It could be that they need to come with a lot of skills that they may have gained from college. So construction industry, it might be that your young person goes to college first and then they go into an apprenticeship to do it, because it's hugely competitive. And this is the industry where I'd say sometimes it's not about what you know, but it might be about who you know. it's easier to find a training provider than it is to find an employer. So if you know somebody who can offer an apprenticeship out to your young person in the construction industry, but you don't know who the training provider is, then it's easier to find a training provider than it can be to find the employer. When we are thinking about construction as well, like I say, from a competitive point of view, there's going to be lots and lots of people that are going to be looking for it. So how does your young person stand out from the crowd from it? They've really got to be bringing something to the table, their motivation, their engagement, and their drive to want to be able to succeed and do that and show that they can achieve what they're doing. So there might be some other ways to get into that sector. We are here to try and support that and navigate that with you. But yeah, the construction industry, lots and lots of opportunity, but it might not be straight away. And if they can get some college qualifications, or if they can get some college experience first, that will stand them in a better stead to be able to secure it later on in the future. To kind of move on to the IT and software development sector, IT is huge in terms of where it's going, particularly with generative AI and things like that. Now, there are more roles within AI than you can, within the information and technology sector than you can think about. There are leadership roles, there are tech support roles, there are coding roles, there are software development roles, there are creative and design engineer roles that they can go into. So it's a really big space, and it's not just in big tech companies where you'll find apprenticeships. So it's not just going to be at Google or Microsoft or Facebook or the big tech companies. Every single company across the country will have somebody who is managing their tech and what they're doing with that. So think about that it's not just being coders and software developers. There are customer service advisors, there are hardware developers, there's data engineers. It's a really big sector. And there's lots and lots of opportunity to do it. Again, though, this is a bit of a caveat in this one, is that their qualifications for an apprenticeship in an IT sector, it starts at level 3. So again, it might be that they need to go to college first, a young person goes to college first to do their level 2 qualification or level 1, and then work their way up. The great thing is if they've got an EHCP, they can access education up until they're 25, so they can move through those different levels of qualifications. There is no race to get to the top in this one, and that, I hope that is really, really kind of taken on board. The EHCP is a great thing to be able to give them that long-term support to be able to reach their full potential. And then lastly, we have the retail and customer service sector, and the hospitality. Do you want me to go through this one?
Yep.
So my background actually was in retail and recruitment, and from that within sort of that industry. So I come with lots and lots of different knowledge in terms of that as an industry. What I can say is that there's if you do follow that pathway through, leadership roles will kind of open up. Never has there been an opportunity to be able to manage so many people if you do follow through that process, and they are a great starting point for entry-level apprenticeships, particularly at sort of the level 2. Hospitality as well, this is where you might find that their customer service skills will give them that ability to move on to that next thing. And it's also maybe considering hospitality and catering and retail as a stopgap in terms of an alternative to college. If you think that a level 2 intermediate apprenticeship is worth 5 GCSEs to a young person, and it can be completed over the space of a year, that actually if they're looking to do something that requires them to be 18 to do, then is this a good stopgap qualification to be able to get some experience, some skills, some teamwork, communication that allows them to access the qualification they really want to do in a year's time, or what that might look like for them. So yeah, that great skills to be attained through that sort of retail and customer service. And incidentally, it probably has the higher of the wages, because it's not always the most attractive industry to be able to go into. So they're trying to recruit people into it, and they have to pay a little bit more for it.
Now then, the best age to start an apprenticeship. So typically 16 to 24 years is the most common age for people to start an apprenticeship. But I'm happy to say there's no age limit. So if there's any of you sitting at home at the moment listening, and you actually start looking through for your young person and see something for yourself, you're never too old to start one. I will say, however, that like David has just mentioned, a lot of companies do prefer their apprentices to be round about the 17, 18 years of age, to have maybe gained that extra qualification first on 1 year at college, or gained a little bit more experience before they start an apprenticeship. You have to remember that starting an apprenticeship at 16 years old, especially if it's the first time out of school, for a lot of young people, it's a huge, huge change of lifestyle for them. So again, make sure that your young person is ready for an apprenticeship. Okay, it might mean that 1 year at college, just to gain those life skills, just get used to being outside of the school setting, might be a good option for them first. Okay, remember, apprenticeships are always here. So again, just take your time with it. You'll know when they're ready. They are aimed at school leavers. Companies do write apprenticeships for young people that will be starting with the basics in qualifications. The idea behind that is they want to train them themselves. So they will take on the candidates that they choose. They will train them to be to work within their own company, so they have the ideal employee to help within their own businesses. And if, like I said, if you're looking for a career change as well, if you suddenly wake up tomorrow morning and decide that you don't want to do your job, you really want to do something you thought about when you were 16, have a look. And the nice thing about your young person having an EHCP is that apprenticeships do offer a lot of reasonable adjustments within the work settings as well. It could be a tailored apprenticeship. So if there is something, maybe they've offered it at a year-long apprentice, but apprenticeship, but you feel that your young person needs maybe a little bit longer, they can offer it out as a longer apprenticeship if it's needed. If they're the right candidate, they can make those reasonable adjustments. And you might also see, as you start looking through apprenticeships, especially in the next couple of months, you might hear the phrase free apprenticeships. Now, traineeships were around a couple of years ago. These are being phased out slightly, and we have supported internships. So these are now being renamed as free apprenticeships. It's a conversation to have with us in the future as well, once we get to understand them a lot more, once the government have decided how they want to introduce them all again. But this is almost like a try before you actually apply. So it could be that your young person goes on a 6 to 12 month 2 or 3 day a week a bit like work experience, extended work experience. It could be just a morning, it could be an afternoon, over that time, a way to understand the industry, have a little bit of work experience before they decide it is the right route for them. So it is something to keep your eye on, something to keep our eye on as well in the future, and we'll tell you more about them when once they become more popular as well, which I'm sure they will.
Okay, so apprenticeships versus full-time jobs, if your young person's thinking about going into them. So like Donna said at the beginning, apprenticeship is an ability to be able to learn and earn at the same time and then get an industry-recognised qualification. It might allow you to take the next level in that apprenticeship world. So if you're thinking, comparing that to a full-time job or work, then obviously you do work and you earn a salary, but you're not then going to get the qualifications to go alongside it. But you do get some great work experience. Career progression with apprenticeships does open doors into specialised roles, and a lot of industries will talk to you about maybe taking a lower level apprenticeship before you go on to their higher level apprenticeship. I know some big companies out there that will almost kind of insist or want somebody to do maybe a level 2 or a level 3. So they get to understand the industry, they get to understand the business, they get to understand what it is to work for a company and what their values are and what their culture is before they move on to maybe their level 3, their level 4, or whatever the next level is of their apprenticeship can be. So I always compare this to climbing a mountain in terms of you can see where you want to be, but normally when you're climbing a mountain, it's not a straight line from the bottom to the top. Normally you have to go up to go across, to go down. The path is always different to be able to get it. The good thing about climbing mountains and doing this is that your young person will not be alone. We are here to support them, and that's kind of where we want them to be. We want them to reach the top. We want them to reach their full potential. So Witherslack Futures is here to support each young person through their journey along however long that might be.
So the benefits of choosing an apprenticeship, we're going to keep saying it, it's earn while you learn. One thing that all of our students always say to us about choosing an apprenticeship is, do you earn a wage? And the answer is yes, you do. So from the minute that they start their apprenticeship, they are treated like any other employee within that company, and that includes wages as well. They will be gaining those experiences. And again, if they're starting very, very young, it's going to help them progress. They receive that nationally recognised qualification. So we had in the past a lot of parents have asked the question, is it a lesser course that you'll go on as an apprentice? And the answer is no. It is exactly the same course that your young person could choose at college full time, except this time it's done on a part-time basis, which is why some apprenticeships last 2 years, some of them last 3 years. So it gives your young person that time to get those qualifications on a part-time basis. And when we say build a professional network early, the nice thing about doing an apprenticeship is you are actually introduced to lots and lots of different departments within each of the companies. You're never just stagnant. So you will get to meet lots and lots of different people that are coming to the companies. You'll meet different people from different departments, and once they get to know you and you get to know them, it's a great way to understand the company. And if there is an internal promotion and you've got the right qualifications, then where can it take you? So it is something to look at as a long-term investment on your young person's behalf as well.
Okay, so some of the benefits for SEND and EHCP students. So if they do have an EHCP and they're living with a particular neurodiversity, then they do sometimes get a flexible learning pace. Whereas the normal time that it takes to complete an apprenticeship or per week might be 30 hours, that's kind of normally the minimum. There can be adjustments made for if the employer is willing to make the adjustments, and the training provider can do it as well. It just means a little bit longer time for the apprenticeship to be completed. So whereas a level 2 completion rate is normally 12 months, that might be extended to 18 months if they have to have their hours reduced. So they do spend about 80% of their time doing the apprenticeship and about 20% of the time doing the academic side of it. There is obviously additional support that you can gain through the apprenticeship as well. So training providers will get an additional £150 per month to be able to support your young person through the apprenticeship, and they can pull that down in blocks of money every quarter to be able to do that as well. So there is the money there to support your young person through the apprenticeship, and then you can get them where they are. Their skills are tailored to their individual strength as well. So if you are with a company or a business who really wants to invest in your young person, then they can go back to training providers and have them kind of readjust their apprenticeship standards to be able to meet the skills of the individuals. That's not always the easiest thing to be able to do and attain, but I say that it is something that is and could be done. But again, it will also help to build confidence and independence for your young person as they move through their working career and history. So things to consider.
Some companies will start at a lower pay compared to a full-time job. Okay, but that is dependent on industries as well. So again, look at the wages. If you are a 16-year-old starting an apprenticeship, at the moment you will be earning around about £6.40 an hour. However, if you are a 19-year-old and you are doing your first year of a 2-year apprenticeship, you will also be on £6.40 an hour until you've completed your first year, and then it will go up to, at the moment, £8.60 an hour. It's that first year that the lower wages will be introduced if you are over the age of 17. So it is something to consider. And like I said, some full-time jobs do offer out a little bit more, but do the comparisons and see what you get out of them at the end of it. You do have to balance work and study at the same time, and for some young people this can be quite challenging. However, my eldest son did do an apprenticeship when he was 17, and it wasn't until he'd finished his first year that I actually asked the question, how was it all going and how was he mixing it all in? And he came up with a really, really good idea, which I've used ever since when I've been talking about apprenticeships. Because he went into work every day and did his hands-on job, and he worked with people who were teaching him how to do the role. He's an electrician, by the way. He was learning on the job. So when it came to the study programme, because it was written, it was theory, it started to make sense to him. When he first saw it, it didn't make much sense. It was a lot of words on a page. The longer he did the job and understood how to do it manually, it made more sense to the theory side. That was one good thing for him. The second part was from the theory side was when he had homework and when he had assessments to do, he would simply take them into work and ask the questions to the people that he worked alongside, and they would help him understand the question, helped him how to answer them. So we actually combined the two as well to help him get through that side of it. So again, quick thinking there. And he did very well on his outcome as well, I have to say. How much of all of that was him, I'm not quite sure. The study may need to include maths and English if your young person hasn't quite gained them yet. So that 20% of their time in a study programme will be to get their industry qualification. If they need to resit maths or English or start those again, they may have to do that in their own time if it isn't included in the theory side. Now then, this can be done in a number of ways. It could be done online, it could be done in an evening class. There are ways to fit it in, but make sure it's not too much for your young person as well. And if it is, ask for the support. There are a lot of young people that think that going off to college and university is something they really want to experience. My daughter did. She was desperate to go to university just because she wanted to be away from home for starters, but she wanted that whole lifestyle as well. She loved college and she really wanted to extend that to a university. She got a degree out of it as well, well done her, but she enjoyed the social side. As an apprentice, you're not going to get that. When you go off to college, or even if you go off to get a degree at a university, yes, you will be within those settings, but a very limited time. And you won't always be there when the other students are. So you might go on a Friday when the college doesn't have regular students in. It is open for these extra learning days. So again, it might be a limited experience for them, but for some students, that's the best thing. And it may require a relocation for certain industries and residential academies. And this is something that both myself and David discovered quite a few times this year, is that some companies actually send the young people, the young apprentices, away at blocks at a time to actually get the theory side or to start their apprenticeship programme. And again, that might be too much for some of your young people. So really make sure that you're understanding what the apprenticeship looks like, what the training looks like before you commit to it, if this is going to be your pathway. So just that little bit of research is key for this one. Okay.
I think just to end on that point, on the residential academies tend to be within the automotive industry. They do tend to have them. So a lot of the main dealerships will use academies where their young people go to finish off their apprenticeships and do the academic side. And then sort of like people like Quick Fit and places like that will also use these academies and they're dotted around. So again, it may be that they need to use public transport to use the trains. They've got to stay in a hotel overnight with there. So yeah, definitely worth thinking about that. There are a few other howevers when it comes to apprenticeships. There is a competitive application process, unlike college, where there may be 30, 40 places to go into a particular course. This is going to be one employer that might be advertising, and there might be 30 to 40 people wanting to apply for it. So it can be a little bit competitive in terms of that side of it. So just wanted to make no illusions to that you could just walk into one from that point. It may be that they have to fill in multiple application forms, or they might have to do little assessment tests before they can actually even get considered through it. Now, worth pointing out as well in this, my other part of my background was in recruitment, working for a company called Get My First Job, and they handled and I did the recruitment process for lots of different companies, and then maybe that they needed to go either do these BKSB assessments for their maths and English before the recruitment company would even put them forward to an employer to even look at. So again, there may be a few little hoops that they have to jump through it because the employer is using a third-party recruitment company to put the best candidate in front of them. Recruitment processes can be a very expensive process, particularly the initial stages of it, which is why you'll find that big companies will use recruitment companies to be able to do it, and then they might say, well, we want to assess your maths and English, or we want you to do this assessment first before we'll put you forward. Apprenticeships tend to be training provider led in terms of their eligibility criteria. This is a bit of a harsh reality in terms of it, and I hate to be saying this, and I don't want to be negative about it, but it can be a tough subject to kind of get your head around. Training providers, although the government have lowered the eligibility criteria from a qualifications point of view to accept people who may have Sorry, I disappeared there for a second. So yeah, the training providers can lead the eligibility criteria.
Sorry,
so what that means is
your slides aren't on. Would you be able to share your screen again? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, 1 second. Has that come back up?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry. That I think my network just dropped out there for a second. So go back over. So the eligibility criteria can be artificially
Sorry,
high.
David, it's still not showing. It's just
Not
saying,
up yet.
yeah.
Well, it says it's sharing. How strange. 1 second.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, back on
Okay.
now. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Has it gone again, or is it up still?
No, we're still there.
Still there. Perfect. Okay. So what happens is that the way that the apprenticeships are funded in terms of how they get money, they get 80% of their money during the apprenticeship period from the training provider, and they need to get their, and the endpoint assessment get their last 20%, which sounds great. Now, what happens is that training providers have realised statistically that people who need to do their maths and English alongside an apprenticeship, what might happen is that they have a higher dropout rate than those that don't necessarily need to do their maths and English alongside it. Now, if you're then kind of working out that the most successful people who are going to go through it are the ones who've already got their maths and English, then you can make the eligibility criteria higher. So you still might find that even for a level 2 intermediate apprenticeship, it says that your young person might need to have maths and English at a level 4. Now, there can be pushback on there from in terms of saying, well, the government can through government legislation, it can be readdressed. But at the end of the day, it is the employer who is the final decision maker in terms of what they want for the eligibility criteria. And if the training provider is saying to the employer that this is what we recommend that you do, then that's why it becomes trainer provider led. I know that was a little bit negative, but I just wanted to be a reality in terms of like you might see some eligibility criteria that is difficult to attain and wanted to know the reason why. I hope that gives you a little bit of a reason. So the other thing is your EHCP and the challenge and the pushback. So if your young person has an EHCP, and if a college might say to you that they can't meet need, well, that is going to be the same for an apprenticeship too. So what that might mean is that because they have to go to college for 1 day a week, the colleges can also refuse to take them on the apprenticeship to saying that they can't meet need. So it's really important that the EHCP is up to date at the point of making an application for an apprenticeship. And if there is anything in the EHCP that you think might be challenging or cause problems, then you need to see whether that can be reviewed again, particularly if it's either out of date and it's not reflective of the young person at that particular time. That's really important because the colleges are still going to be the people that will say yes or no in terms of whether you're a young person. So you could have lined up an employer and the college might say no because of a pushback on the EHCP. So just making sure that's all in line and that everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet with it, which I know can be sometimes easier said than done. Okay. Hopefully it's going to come up. There we go.
So making the right choices. Think about the interests and career goals. So if you think about, if you sit down and have conversations with your young person about what they're interested in at home, at college, at school, what they do for a hobby, where can that take them? What industry could that lead them into? It's really good to connect all of those dots. And this is one thing that I've always told all of my children. Getting out of bed every day and going off to work, especially if you're 16, 17 years old, can sometimes be really tricky. But if you're actually interested in it, and it makes getting out of bed much, much easier. So as a parent, it'll make your job a little bit easier as well. compare the apprenticeship route to college or full-time work. You have these choices in front of you. And I know as adults, our young people tend to ignore what we have to say. But as a parent as well, having that knowledge in the background for me was an absolute saver. Because I'd done the research into apprenticeships. When my son came to me and said he wanted to do an apprenticeship, I didn't know much about them back then. And I always thought it was going to be college and then into the world of work. He was the one that brought apprenticeships to my attention, and I'm really glad he did. It really suited him. My second child, she was school, college, off to university, and then into the world of work. It suited her. And my third one went to college for a little while. It didn't suit him. He finished after 1 year, and he's gone into a job role now. It depends on your young person and where they want to go. But as a parent, you can always kind of support from the sidelines. So getting that information for yourself is going to make this process easier as well. Research the industries and the long-term opportunities. Remember, the apprenticeship is the first start before they move into their career. So have a look at what a company will offer them when they are qualified. So once you've actually looked at the apprenticeship offers, look at the job offers within the industries as well. So you'll see what they will actually be walking into within their job roles, and the wages will change, and the hours may change, and the responsibilities may change. So that kind of like looking ahead all of the time is a great thing as well. It's a bit like the carrot and the stick. If they do the apprenticeship and they get through all of that and they do their best and they get those qualifications, this is what they could walk into. So it is always worth looking ahead. David?
Okay, so the next thing is introduction to apprenticeships and the process onto there. So when you are looking to start looking for apprenticeships, where to find apprenticeships can be the biggest challenge, I guess. So looking at platforms, so the government website is an amazing place to start. You can register onto there at Find My Apprenticeship. It's worth pointing out that not everybody or not all apprenticeships will be listed onto the Gov website. They can be a little bit tricky to be able to get the actual application or the job description onto the government website. It gets kicked back quite a lot. I know that from personal experience with it. So sometimes employers give up and just move on to places like Indeed and other sites. But it is a great starting point to be able to go out. But after that, yes, you will find them on Indeed and CV Library and Total Jobs and Reed. All of these different job sites will have different apprenticeships. But again, looking at company sites individually as well. So what can you do to, if you've got a particular industry, a particular company that your young person maybe wants to work for, then it's worth researching and going directly to them and seeing whether they have a careers page and what it says about that. Also, then going onto the college pages, because they are the training providers, they may actually have some apprenticeships listed on there. And the other thing is also registering on sites like Get My First Job or Not Going to Uni or Rate My Apprenticeship. The advantage of actually registering your young person onto sites like this will mean that you are marketed by the companies they are recruiting for. So they will send you information about the latest apprenticeships if it's within your area, and they may actually call you to be able to, or your young person to say, I have this apprenticeship, or are you interested in applying for it? Or they may actually have other insight events and very specific insight events that are very specific to the employers that they are working with. So again, there's a little bit in terms of research and where you would look for them. After that, you're obviously going to need to prepare a CV, potentially a cover letter, and that's something that the future support can help your young person with. And then you're going to be able to apply online, and again, through the college and your connections. That's something that hopefully we will also be able to help with. The last step will be the interview process or assessment process. Now, some of it might be if you know somebody and they can offer an apprenticeship to your young person, it might just be a chat. But if not, and it is something where you've had to follow an application process and you've been successful at that, then the end point will probably be an interview or assessment. So interviews can take many shapes. It might be a panel, it might be over Teams, it might be individual. So again, Futures are here to support that. One of the things to kind of point out to you, though, is that I mentioned quickly for a second onto there, when I did the application process for a young person that we secured an apprenticeship with them, they had to go through an assessment process. They actually had to go to an assessment day and then be part of a team assessment, so a group interview stage, if you want to put it that way. And it was a whole morning thing where they had to go through it. So again, just something to consider in terms of the interview process. I would say the bigger the company, the more probably complex the interview process will be. And the higher the level of the education you're trying to attain from the apprenticeship, again, it probably goes hand in hand with that as well. So what are Futures Leads and Talent Managers? So we are the employment coaches and your support for your young person. We will do everything from employer and employability workshops in the schools. We will do one-to-one support with pupils in the schools as well, where possible. So we've probably met some of your young people already. We do these kind of parent and carer events, career events, and coffee mornings that we've been to. We do online one-to-one support with your young person and with parents as well. Definitely CV building and CV creation. If you want an industry insight into something, so if you wanted to get more in-depth knowledge about what the construction industry is or what the automotive industry is, then we will break down that and give you an insight into what it is to get into that particular industry. Application support, and then interview preparation, mock interviews, if that's what your young person needs for that, and then that continued ongoing support from post-employment, which is we want your young person to be the most successful they can. So there might be some realization that working life is not like school and there are consequences to actions. So we'll help them guide through that process too. So
this page is self-explanatory here. Okay, so it's the resources and the next steps. So reach out to your school or your college career advisor if you need any support, or you can connect with us at the Futures team as well. I always say this: attend apprenticeship fairs or open days at colleges. Okay, if you see them advertised locally, just pop along. You'll be amazed at how many small companies actually use these to recruit as well. And we've got some of our useful websites and useful links. You find the apprenticeship one there for the government, the Indeed, the Not Going to Uni, and there at the bottom is our WG Futures. So again, please feel free to, when you get this sent out to you tomorrow, please feel free to use those links and have a look around, and we hope it's useful for you.
It's also worth mentioning that we do have an app as well that is for alumni and for young people who are leaving year 11 and looking to potentially get support in either getting into part-time work and employment opportunities and apprenticeships. So the app is something that you can use to create a group of support around your young person as they transition and go on that employment journey. So that's something else we can send out to you as well. So thank you for listening. I know there's a lot of information there. I hope we've been able to keep your attention through it. I suppose it's just now to ask if you have any questions for us.